few disclaimers. Firstly, before this video starts, I must warn you that this video will contain massive spoilers for OneShot. If you have not played OneShot or have not finished OneShot and you wish to do either, please stop watching this video because it's a really stupid video to spoil OneShot on. Complete the game and then come back. If you, however, have already played through the entirety of OneShot, go ahead and continue watching this video. Otherwise, do not continue until you finish the game. If you don't care, then, well, there's nothing I can really do to stop you. But if you care, again, stop watching this video. OneShot is a really good game to play through spoiler-free. Once you are done, you can then come back. Secondly, I'm making this video in good fun. I had an idea I wanted to publish and ran with it. I don't mean any harm with any jokes I make. This video is made in pure fun and should not be taken seriously. With those out of the way, enjoy the video. Airplanes! Most of us love them, some of us hate them. They take us anywhere we want to go in the world in a short and convenient amount of time. However, in the early days of the airplane, it wasn't that easy. Constant crashes, failures, unfortunate deaths. But emerging from the early days of the aircraft were multiplanes. Multiplanes were significant during the early days of 1910s aviation and throughout World War I. Sure, you heard of the Red Baron, who used a triplane during World War I. But why am I bringing up multiplanes? Because in OneShot, specifically during the SOLSTICE point of OneShot, while you're in the Glen, you meet a guy named Cedric, who's fixing up a biplane, which falls under the category of multiplanes, which we were just talking about. And I was recently thinking to myself about the biplane that Cedric uses. I wonder which biplane this aircraft happens to resemble. That's what today's video is about. I'll figure that question out, plus a few other questions, which I will go over right now. Since I am a human, I may not get all my information correct. If there's a bit of information that I have wrongly stated, wrongly sourced, or is outright incorrect, please feel free to correct me. And make sure you refer to the pinned comment for all corrections to this video. So this video will answer a few questions regarding Cedric's biplane. Question number 1, as mentioned, what real-life biplane does Cedric's plane resemble most? Question number 2, how much power would Cedric's plane need to take off from the runway he would have in the Glen Graveyard area? Question number 3, how the hell would that guy stop on that little platform in Refuge? These are just 3 primary questions I want to answer in today's video. Let's begin to answer the first question. What real-life biplane does Cedric's biplane resemble the most? Now, this was a tricky part of my research because there are over 1,000 different biplanes, and we're looking for one specific one. However, OneShot does contradict itself with different versions of the aircraft between scenes, which will help us lessen the search pool. In the Glen and Refuge area, you may notice that the cockpit for the aircraft is above both the wings, but when in the air it seems to be between the wings. Between the wings seems more correct for a biplane like this, so we're going to assume the cockpit is between both of the wings because realistically, that makes the most sense. Another contradiction we'll find is that, on the ground, it looks like the plane has a blunt forward end. However, in the air, it looks like the plane has a pointed forward end. Most biplanes were built with a blunt forward end, so we're going to assume the blunt forward end assumption. Now, don't get me wrong, there are biplanes out there with a pointed forward end. However, this kind of biplane we see here is more likely to have a blunt forward end, so that's where my assumption comes from. One final problem is that most biplane engines were either fully open as a rotary engine or partially closed off, but they were never fully closed off. The engine elements are exposed to allow air to flow through for cooling. Now, Cedric's plane has no visible cooling hose, so that's an item we're going to have to dismiss and ignore for our research, as it wouldn't make sense. Now that we've covered some of the contradictions, let me show you my research and what I have found in terms of planes that resemble Cedric's biplane. We'll make 2 comparisons. 1, the biplane that looks most like Cedric's biplane, and 2, an aircraft that matches the performance necessary for Cedric's biplane to work. Number 2 will come later. Let's focus on 1. The series of planes of interest that speaks to me when looking up biplanes with enclosed engines was the Wacko F series, one of the planes being shown on screen now. This series of biplanes appears to have 2 seats with an enclosed engine, and it looks similar to Cedric's biplane. I believe this is my number 1 pick for similarity. However, if you have any knowledge of biplanes that fit better, feel free to leave a comment. So now that we've answered question 1, let's move on to question 2. This question is going to require a bit of math to work out, but it shouldn't be too math-filled. For reference, question 2 was, how much power would Cedric's plane need to take off from the little area in the Glen Graveyard? One of the first things we'll need to do is work out the length of the runway Cedric has in that area, which requires us to know a few things. 1, a known height of a character. 2, how much length a pixel covers. And 3, obstacles that may be of concern during takeoff. Before we continue, keep in mind that some of the values of height or length may seem odd or ridiculous, but note that the developers probably did not expect for some dumb idiot like me to measure the pixels, so again, keep that in mind. Starting with number 1, we actually do have the known height of a character. We actually know the height of Nico. As sourced by Night Margin on Tumblr, we know that Nico's canonical height is 4 feet, or 48 inches, which is 121.9 centimeters. Now, it's not specified if this is to the ears or just to the top of Nico's head, but for this calculation we will assume it's to the top of Nico's ears. Assuming this, measuring from Nico's sprite feet to the top of Nico's sprite ears, we are able to calculate that Nico is 53 pixels tall, so that's 53 pixels for 48 inches. Even if we ignored the ears and went to the top of the hat, that's only a difference of 2 pixels. It's such a little difference that we won't worry about it. Divide 48 inches by 53 pixels, and we get, after rounding, 0.91 inches per pixel, or 2.3 centimeters per pixel. For a little extra tidbit of knowledge, based on this measurement, this would make Cedric, since his sprite is 59 pixels tall, 53.4 inches, or 135.7 centimeters tall. That's 4 foot 5 inches. With the knowledge of how much one pixel covers, we can finally begin to measure the Glen graveyard length. Using the value of 0.91 inches per pixel, or 2.3 centimeters per pixel, we find the area the plane is in is 849 pixels long, and using our rough values, this translates to 772.6 inches, or 1,962.4 centimeters, and that's roughly about 64.4 feet, or only 19.6 meters! This is not looking good for Cedric, and don't tell the FAA because it only gets worse. We haven't even considered the gravestone obstacles. There are 2 gravestones that would be a possible collision hazard for takeoff, now being shown. The one closest to the plane is avoidable by a slim margin, but the second one may be a huge collision risk. So I'd say Cedric would have to lift off before the second one to avoid that collision risk, which brings the runway length down to less than half our value, or about 32.2 feet, or only 9.8 meters. At this point, it's safe to say it'd be physically impossible for Cedric to take off from that runway. That is, if the FAA doesn't catch him first. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. For my aviation friends, do you know STOL? Yep, we're bringing that up. For those who don't know, STOL stands for Short Takeoff and Landing. And as it stands, the world record for the shortest takeoff roll, or distance used to go from releasing the brakes to lifting off the ground, is 14 feet 7 inches. However, this was done with a heavily modified aircraft made very light and with strong winds, and this record was done with a single-wing aircraft with one person aboard, the pilot. Whatever plane Cedric has must be more powerful than we have, because its short takeoff and landing abilities in such a small area are insane. So to answer question 1's second comparison, it's this plane, shown on screen now. Now to give some hope, the plane Cedric flies does look insanely small, and combined with a possibly powerful engine, might give it wild short takeoff and landing abilities, but as far as I'm aware, Cedric would have to break the laws of physics to get it to fly, but maybe those laws in the OneShot universe are different than ours. Unfortunately, due to the supernatural ability of Cedric's aircraft, I don't think I could properly calculate the power a plane like his would need to take off. But the horsepower needed to carry both him and Nico, plus generate the speed to create lift, is likely beyond 500 or even 1,000 horsepower. Keep in mind that this aircraft uses a battery and gears to fly. Leading into our final question, question 3, how the hell would that guy stop on that little platform in Refuge? We pretty much answered our question in question 2, practically with magic. I don't really have much more to say or add. I can only say I'm impressed by the work of the author. To conclude, we found that Cedric's aircraft closely resembles that of a Wacko F-Series aircraft. And then we found that Cedric, in the Glen, only has about 32.2 feet or 9.8 meters for takeoff, and that he has some sort of wildly magical aircraft to accomplish these feats. Well, that's the end of the silly video. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around for this random thought I had at like 3 in the afternoon. I don't know why I made this. All sources are in the description. I'm done with this video. It is 3:36 in the morning. I'm going to bed. Good night.